It all starts in the war against the Demon King 1,000 years ago. On the day the demonic beasts crossed the front lines and attacked the humans, you're probably already thinking, oh damn, here comes another one of those cliché stories. I've seen this beginning like 16 times already. But hold on, my warrior. Take it easy. Humanity fought against the creatures for survival. However, the long and never-ending war continued. The ground kept being soaked in blood while the number of demonic beasts in decrease. Until suddenly someone shows up riding the Black Dragon. That's when the legendary mage appeared, Bro. He easily managed to wipe out the entire field, defeating all the demonic beasts. Just the majestic presence of the dragon alone already caused fear in all the beasts. Everyone on the battlefield worshipped the hero. But then, out of nowhere, he suddenly fell dead to the ground. The mage met a mysterious death at the same moment he won the war against the demons. The mage said he would be waiting for the one obsessed with strength, the one who wouldn't succumb to temptations or corruption. The scene then changes completely to the subway, where people are watching a UFC match. It was the 17th fight of the world champion defending his title. Around the octagon, everyone was cheering and shouting for the challenger. In the blue left corner was some guy named Patrick, the challenger. 120 kilos of pure dry muscle like a bodybuilder, and everyone's yelling for him to kill. Meanwhile, in the right corner is the world champion with 37 fights and 37 wins. Someone who has never lost a single match to this day and is ripped at 5% body fat, 100 kilos of muscle, black hair with swag. The two are face to face. The announcer says that Kim Jin-ho doesn't seem to be using his foot lately. And Patrick said in an interview that he must have an injured foot and that today is the day he loses. Everyone's starting to think that eventually Kim Jin-ho has to lose. The guy's already 48 years old. There's no way he's going to keep winning forever. And with that, the bell rings to start the fight. Patrick didn't even move yet, and he's already frozen stiff. The presence of that bastard in front of him was terrifying. It was expected from the champion. But he already knows that guy's leg is injured. So he goes toward him to try a takedown and throw him to the ground. He dodged low to grab his legs, saying that this guy is arrogant for even coming to the ring injured. But the moment he's just about to touch the leg and is smiling because he thinks he got it, there's already a laser coming from the side, bro. Blood gushes in the arena, and that's it. The fight is over, man. Patrick's all messed up over there. Kim Jin-ho says that's why he wasn't using his leg. Otherwise, it'd be too easy. Damn, what a cocky guy. Sometime later, he puts on his coat, slams the locker shut, and is getting ready to leave. A man, kind of joking, tells him to wait, saying there are people who want to interview him, that he should talk to the fans and all that stuff. But Jin-ho just says to tell them to send a message. When his schedule's open, he's got better things to do. His friend says he needs to understand. It's pouring rain outside, traffic is a disaster. Jin-ho says that's even better. He'll run and get there faster. Suddenly, he already slammed the door, and the friend tries to leave, saying it's 30 kilometers away. But the guy wasn't even there anymore. He vanished in front of everyone. And now it's the reporters who are annoying the coach, wanting to know how he created the legend. The protagonist goes back home while the coach thinks it's honestly going to be sad. He remembers the first time he saw this kid fight. He debuted by finishing the opponent with a punch. Next fight was an elbow. Most fights didn't last more than 30 seconds, and all the coach can feel is sadness. He's certain Kim Jin-ho won't find anyone capable of facing him until the day he retires. And then he tells the reporters that the leg thing was just to make the fight harder. Sometime later, arriving at the apartment, he's soaking wet. 14th floor, full of presents at the entrance from fans. And bro, the guy is the world champion, right? His place is a giant mansion. And it's an apartment building, you get it. The guy made a mansion in the building. But what he loves the most is right there, man. It's the gamer PC. That's right, bro. Our UFC world champion is a gaming addict too. Not just any game, but one called Last Savior. A game so hard that most Korean users who usually like this kind of niche gave up. Kim Jin-ho, however, has been playing it every single day for the past 10 years. He's been honing his skills in fighting and stronger people and monsters. That's how he's been living his life. The protagonist smiles, saying he hopes he doesn't win today like always. There was his character, Fimi, on the battlefield. What he liked the most was the feeling of challenging a creature. And once again, he was going up against the Demon King, Azar. Some time passes, and Jin-ho's expression changes. He was face to face with the Demon King, but the creature had almost no health left. He looks at the HP bar, he couldn't believe it. At this rate, he was going to win. He hits the Demon King, telling the bastard to defend himself properly. He tries an attack to the legs and wonders how he didn't dodge something so obvious. The poor NPC is trying to fight back, but it's tough. Kim Jin-ho's blonde character is finishing him off, while wondering why the patterns today were way too simple, because every single attack he was throwing was landing perfectly. He activates a lion's aura and a bunch of slashes appear on the Demon King. When he turned on the PC today, his intention was to challenge again, aiming for victory. But right now, he was scared of winning. He tells the Demon King to hold on and try something different, that he was going to win, that he wasn't going to lose today. Kim Jin-ho was even bending his finger commands, trying somehow not to win this. But it was inevitable. In the end, he landed a slash that killed the Demon King. With that, he was congratulated for being the first person to kill Demon King Izar. At that moment, Kim Jin-ho's expression changed. He had become a champion in two completely different worlds. The mouse moves to the screen, and now he's angry at himself, wondering who he's going to fight now. Maybe he should go out running in this rain and look for a bear in the forest. But then, in the middle of the clouds, a golden light appears and a strange lightning bolt strikes. When he feels something approaching and looks up, the lightning seems to have struck right into his apartment. The screen goes black and he feels a strange sense of vertigo, while his whole body seems kind of numb. He looks up and sees the rain and wonders when he even left his house. But when he lowers his eyes, he sees he's wearing some weird orange pants. Suddenly, someone puts a hand on his shoulder and calls him by 218. A blonde girl with blue eyes says they don't have time for this. They need to escape from there right now. He shouldn't be standing there like an idiot. He's a bit confused and sees the number 172 on her shirt and instantly wonders where the hell he is. In front of him, there's a bunch more inmates trying to escape from a prison that looks more like a castle. Looking at one of the flags, he thinks he recognizes the eagle's pattern. But then 172 tells him to wake up to reality, because this is the last chance they'll have to escape. If not now, they'll never get out of the butcher's prison. Look at the guy's face, man. And obviously, he already recognized the name Butcher's Prison. I already like the start of this story, right, bro? The guy got escaped by lightning. God looked down and said, that's enough. Go to another world. This one's already too OP. Obviously, even though the protagonist realizes what's happening, he's still kind of dazed while 172 pulls him. Next to them, a bunch of prisoners keep going by, pulling the gate in a tug of war. Kim Jin-ho wanted to believe this was a dream, but at the same time, it felt way too real. He starts running beside the girl, trying to understand how he ended up inside the game he used to play, until he decides to calm down and escape this place first, and then worry about how to solve this mystery. But suddenly, he stops and tells 172 to pay attention. This was weird. This was supposed to be the most secure prison of all, and everything was way too messed up. 172 says it's because Director Clark isn't there. Looks like he stepped out to deal with something, and this is everyone's chance to escape. Kim Jin-ho, however, suddenly grabs her by the collar and runs in the opposite direction. She tells him to let go, saying he's a maniac, but he was sure. This prison was way too secure for it to fall into chaos like this, and something told him that whoever went through that door wasn't going to live much longer. 172 is trying to resist, telling him to let go of her. And at that moment, the others manage to open the door and start celebrating, saying they're finally free. They're all going out while our boy takes her further inside the prison. But obviously, the smiles of the escapees disappeared really fast, bro. Out of nowhere, arms start flying, legs everywhere, and Director Clark is right in front of them all. The guy turns and says this place really is full of pathetic worms. He gives the order for them to be killed, and the troops storm in. 172 asks why he's there, while our boy says right away that this was clearly a trap. Now the criminals are all rushing back into the prison, desperate, bro. The walls were painted in blood. Sometime later, Clark tells them to gather the survivors. The line of criminals forms. Bro, only our protagonist and his friend are different there. Copy and paste was used hard. She's right next to him, almost throwing up. Actually, wow, she threw up in her hand, all of it. It would have been better to just vomit on the floor. And worst of all, for vomiting, she got punched for moving. Jin-ho is shocked that they're that violent even with kids. No wonder riots happen there all the time. If something like that happens again, he's going to have to get involved in a fight. And then Clark shows up in front of him like 78 meters tall, saying the kid is either really lucky or way too much of a coward to have tried escaping. But to him, that's typical. Every mage is like that, nothing but a coward. Calling people like them rivals is disgusting. He gets in our protagonist's face and says that Arahan is going to regret surviving today. The guy leaves and the protagonist stares at his reflection, wondering if he really was just called Arahan. A week later, a beautiful blue sky and our boy is working. They had to spend the whole day stacking rocks. But not because there was a big reason, just so they wouldn't be idle and had something to do. Looking at his own hand, all busted up, our boy, who I don't even know what to call anymore, Kim Jin-ho, 218 Arahan, will figure it out later. But this same guy is complaining that just lifting a rock already makes him run out of breath, and this body is way too weak. Not to mention, they said he's a mage, but he tried to use magic and nothing happened. It seemed like a complete failure, but to him it made no sense. Arahan should know how to use magic. That's because Arahan is the name of the most powerful mage family in that region. That's when it hits him. He was from that family, probably, but was discarded for having no magical talent. Considering how cruel and sadistic that family is, that would make perfect sense. Then the guard tells him to take that rock over to the other side. The protagonist just obeys and carries the rock. He's looking forward to something specific. On the system window, it says that due to excessive data, synchronization is taking a while. The guy was so overpowered in real life. This guy is struggling to download his files. Yesterday and the next day, a meal time. Or well, meal is a strong word. At the time of rock with water and bread, which also looks more like a rock. The protagonist complains he's been training hard, but with food like this, he won't build any muscle. Then 172 shows up and asks if he's not going to eat the bread again. He says no and tells her to take it. Now I'm confused. Jinho says this friend is peculiar. What do you mean? It's a guy? No way. No. I think something's off, probably. Kim Jinho is wondering why this person, and I'll just say person for now until I know if it's a guy or girl, is locked up in here being so young. And 172 tells him to be careful lately. It seems like because of our guy, everyone's workload increased and nobody's happy about it. Now that made sense to Jinho why so many people were staring at him in that place. And 172 tells him to be careful, especially with 589, the leader of the prisoners, who also has a notorious reputation in the arena. Jinho then says it's better not to talk to him, since she might end up at risk too. But 172 says she already knows everyone, so she can just ignore it. And our protagonist stands up, saying they're going to find out right now. A bunch of prisoners start approaching, and he says the situation she mentioned is about to happen. At that moment, 172 is startled when she sees the guy's number. Right, bro? In theory, he's the leader of the prisoners, right? But honestly, I think he's the leader of the bald gang man. So far, only our protagonist and that friend have hair. No way, that's a coincidence. And the leader says he heard the reason their workload increased was because of that kid. 218 just wants to know what he has to do with that. Well, I mean, it is your fault, right, you bastard? He's about to make up an excuse, but there's already a hand the size of his head in front of him, bro. It opened a crater in the ground and 172 yells out for our boy. But someone grabbed the leader by the neck. What's that, bro? You think Kim Jinho is going to play around? He already lands a knee right in the guy's chin. His friend and the bald guys are all freaking out, calling out to the boss. And the protagonist's expression changed, right, man? He's not the same as before, and now his knee did absolutely nothing. 589 asks, what was that? And now our boy gets grabbed by the collar and is about to get airplane spun, man. The guy was thrown against the wall like protagonist in a couple's fight. Bro. His friend's right there, scared, calling out to 218. But the boss says if he didn't die just now, he can rest assured he's marked for death. Whoa there, boss. You better watch out, because the synchronization just hit 100%, bro. Look at the villain's little grin. Finally, someone installed fiber optic in this cursed system that never loads. And the beatdown is about to begin. He's already getting back up, surrounded by that aura or with his fist full of blue energy. The kids all drive in balls now with those auras, doing that little hand flex and foot warm-up. Whoa, man, he's already in MMA stance, telling the guy to step into the ring. The boss laughs, saying for someone abandoned by his own clan, he really thinks a lot of himself. But Jinho just tells him to shut up already and come into the ring. The boss, tired of the talk, runs straight at him, bro. Our boy sees an opening in the leg and takes a low kick. But what? You thought it would be easy. The guy grabbed his foot, saying the kid's gonna learn a lesson now. But again, what? You thought it would be easy. Our boy pulled the B-blade move, started spinning and landed one right on the side of the head. The boss looked a little dazed, but before he could recover, bam, one more under the chin. Man, the guy just wanted to fall, but the kid wasn't about to stop there. Takes another solid kick and stumbles back. With that, the boss hit the ground out cold. And our guy, still being dramatic, says that's why he doesn't like using his leg much. Suddenly, the whole prison's already pulling out their apple slicers heading toward our boy. Because you can't even call those sticks knives, right, man? But our dude stepped on the boss, pulled his arm, and warned. If they came any closer, this guy was going to need help eating for the rest of his life. With that, the bald heads all froze, not knowing what to say. Jinho stomped on the arm again and said he still saw a lot of people standing there. If they wanted to stop this, then call the guards. Right away, one of them takes off running, saying that when the guards come and free the boss, he's gonna die. Apparently, in the end, all the guys surrendered and just carried the boss away. Sometime later in the cell, 172 wants to know how he did that, saying it was way too amazing. Not to mention, the kid looked like he had grown taller out of nowhere. What happened? The protagonist says it was the result of hauling rocks back and forth. But obviously, that was the result of syncing his real-life stats with the game's. It's the first time the protagonist brings his real-life body, because it's more overpowered than the one from the game, you feel me? Usually, it's always the guy who has a trash body and ends up in an amazing one. And now what our boy is impressed with are the stats. Zed Arahan, full of S-rank immunities. Bro. Immortal Duelist, Challenger rank, S-rank Archmage. Man, Grim has it all. What he finds strange is that his class is really Mage. And because of that, he has 50% or less agility, strength, and resistance. And even though he's in the Mage class, he literally has 0 mana. In other words, he's losing half of his attributes for absolutely nothing. Not to mention that this makes no sense because he belongs to the Arahan family, which is full of geniuses. Meanwhile, 172 is just staring, wondering what this lunatic is rambling about, laughing to himself. There's no way. The guy's lying on the bed, trying to figure out how it's possible he reincarnated into such a garbage body. But first, he needs to calm down and start considering his options. He's got that so-called growth penalty, which is what's cutting 50-50-50. But even then, it's still better than zero. Not to mention, physical strength is something he knows how to develop even better. The only obvious problem is that the food there is terrible and isn't helping at all. What he's curious to understand better is this whole pile of S-rank talents. If he had all that and could have mana, then he'd be completely busted. An Archmage's blessing like that is for very few people. But it's all good. He's going to try to find a way to solve this no mana issue. There's got to be some solution. Right then, suddenly, the guy from outside the cell starts calling out several numbers. Everyone called is forced to leave the cell. He asks what's going on, and 172 says those are the people in the death cube, bro. Basically, they'll have one last meal, and then it's goodbye. He says he gets it, then asks the friend's name. To the sadness of some and the joy of others, the name is Ryu. So yeah, he really is a friend. And our boy introduces himself as Zed Arahan. Arahan's a pretty ugly name, so from now on I'm calling him Zed. Cause Zed is badass, you feel me? Zed asks Ryu if he's going to be in prison long. Who says he'll be escaping soon? Protagonist wants to know how. He says it's simple. The guard up front has a key. Zed thinks he's going to steal it, but Ryu says it's impossible. The guy may be retired, but he's a five-circle knight. Director Clark is the epitome of a knight who hates mages. That's because in the world of Last Savior, knights and mages hate each other. And now Zed's wondering how he's going to escape this place that's guarded by a five-circle person. Weird. This is the first time I've seen circles used for someone who doesn't use magic. Then Ryu says it's not that hard. You just have to steal it without him noticing. For someone who came from the streets, that's easy. The only problem is that Clark's very attentive. So far, he hasn't seen a single opportunity. Zed smiles and says now he really sees a way to escape this place. The next day, work is about to start again, and one of the guards announces that by orders of the boss, they'll have to carry even more rocks today. The people are complaining, saying it's not going to work. Soon, everyone's going to die. The guard puts a sword to someone's neck, and one of the bald guys says, he just wants to know why they're pushing them so hard. There's no reason for this. The guard looks to the side and says they should already know whose fault it is. Obviously, everyone stares at Zed, and then the guard coughs and says he'll be back in a few minutes. 172 warns him that clearly they're setting him up for the others to jump him. Oh yeah, our protagonists already notice that these knights who follow the code of honor are acting very differently than they should. While Ryu is off running, he's not getting involved in this. But it looks like he's got some kind of plan, because he says he's not going to let Zed die. Obviously, all the inmates are coming to the same conclusion. To make the work easier, they're going to have to kill Zed. The protagonist smiles and says it really is an unavoidable situation. All the thugs rush toward him, saying he's way too confident. But as soon as the first one comes in, bam, he hits welcome with a knee to the chin. Bowling ball drops to the floor, and everyone's scared now, wondering who's going to be the next crazy one to charge in. But Zed just says for them to all come at him at once already. And there goes the crew again. But the first one that comes is again met with a hammer blow to the head. While he's throwing elbows and smashing, Zed is pissed that these bastards keep coming one by one and then another and another, instead of just attacking him all together. Another one falls to the ground and he says these guys are really lacking aggression. And just as he notices something, he ducks just in time and dodges an attack. Another knee and more headbutts, punches. It's a full-on brawl everywhere. And from a distance, Ryu is watching all this. The boy was leaving a trail of bodies on the ground, and he had no idea Zed was this strong. But right at that moment, someone next to him calls out to Ryu and tells him to come along. Meanwhile, Zed is already drop-kicking guys in the stomach. As always, they pull out those 3cm knives, which I mean are big enough, impressive even. At least that's what she said. But Zed already lands one on the next guy's face, telling him again to come at him with everything. And obviously, at that point, he was having fun. The guy fought his whole life. So if there's one thing he likes, it's having his life on the line. There's nothing better than dodging an attack that could have killed you. That adrenaline is what got him so addicted, both to that game and to martial arts. He hits one more in the chin, another in the back of the neck, while going crazy bro. Clearly not right in the head, obviously, until someone steps on his back and calls out for the damn Zed Arahan. Majin Buu grabs the cracked-out albino kid Buu and tells him that if he doesn't stop, his friend's going to die. Obviously, yeah, Ryu had been captured, but our boy just smiles and says they made a huge mistake. Ryu was trying to break free, biting and everything. And the cracked kid Buu says the kid's going to die to a two-circle knight, so it's not that shameful. He jumps in to attack, but obviously Zed dodges it with ease. The guy looks like he doesn't even know what just happened, saying Zed disappeared. And when he looks to the side, there they are, already chatting calmly. Kid Buu wants to know what just happened, what kind of magic he used. Our guy says, wasn't magic, bro. A movement of skin starts to approach, looks like a ballerina, but lands a perfect hit to the neck. The poor guy got dragged across the floor. But right then, Clark shows up calling for number 218, saying he's going to have to explain himself. But someone speaks up and says 218 was the victim. It's Ryu, who explains that he had been taken hostage, and it was Zed who saved him. Clark looks at the pile of guys knocked out on the floor, and he seems pissed that these guys only ever get beat up. He then says he wants to ask Zed something. He wants to know if, somehow, he's been using mana. Kind of uninterested, Zed says, maybe. But then Clark activates his aura. The prisoners on the ground get up just to say they can't breathe, while Ryu, who was still standing, drops to the floor. Now that makes sense. But through all that, bro, our guy is just standing there, untouched inside a mana barrier. It was one of the S-rank traits, resistance to suppression. He finally figured it out. It was a mental immunity ability. The guy is so full of himself, he says it all makes sense. He reached the pinnacle of Earth, won 27 fights in a row at the top of the world. There's no way some mediocre person from a world like this would ever scare him. Clark, however, didn't like seeing the kid still standing. He's losing his mind. He wants to know how the hell a bastard with no mana is still resisting this. The guy even pulls more of the aura and starts pushing harder. Any more and he'd probably crap his pants for sure. But S-rank suppression resistance is absolute man. And with his hand on his waist, he's totally chillin'. Clark's expression changes. He can't even understand how this is possible. The rest of the guards are begging him to stop, saying at this rate, everyone there is going to die. Suddenly, Clark deactivates his aura. Staring at Zed, he says it's best he try to calm down. Otherwise, at any moment, he's going to cut his throat. He gives the boy one last stare and turns away, telling everyone to get back to work. But man, Zed tells him to wait a second and says he's got something to say. He says he's tired of doing that idiotic rock stacking thing, and he's more than fed up with this bunch of prisoners attacking him. And that's why he's planning to end it all. Ryu asks what this lunatic is talking about, to which Zed replies he wants to join the death row, bro. Clark questions whether he has any idea what he's saying. It's not something he can just change his mind about later. But our boy says Clark can even record it in a crystal ball if he wants. He's not backing down. Clark says, perfect then, and tells someone to bring a registration item. Right away, Zed says that now that he's on death row, he wants to request his last meal. He wants a birdie steak. A big enough portion to fill his belly. Looks like that's something really expensive, because the guards' faces say it all, bro. They say it's madness. Obviously, that top-quality steak is prepared only in the Southern Empire. In the game, it was one of the rarest foods you could consume. Delicious enough to restore even strength lost to age. Some people even ate it in the middle of battle to buff themselves and win the fight, man. Our boy, though, seems to be planning to stockpile it. I don't get it. Let's see what he's up to. He tells Clark that considering the family he's from and the cost of his life, it's a fair request. Besides, he warns that he knows what the real thing is like. So if they try to trick him, the whole deal will be voided. Ryu, though, wants to know why the hell this lunatic is trying to die. Then Zed says he'd forgotten about his friend. The two of them are on death row now. The staff hesitates, but Clark interrupts and says to follow orders. Since it's the life of an Arahan, it's worth it. Our girl thanks them, while obviously Ryu is freaking out, wanting to know why he is dragged into this. Next scene, he's in his room getting ready, apparently just finding that steak takes over a week. Our boy is using this time to keep training. Ryu, on the other hand, thinks it makes no sense. He's going to die anyway, so why bother exercising? Zed then reveals a special little system. 100 is the max number for any attribute, and all remaining experience gets funneled into the one that hasn't been leveled yet. And since he has 100 in every other attribute, obviously all the experience he earns goes into mana. Right in the middle of this, a guard shows up calling for the two of them, and Zed already celebrates, saying it's finally here. The meal, the extremely rare steak, is being prepared. As soon as Yuk the beef takes a bite, he cries with emotion, saying he's never eaten anything so good in his life. To which Zed says, don't forget, that's thanks to me. Some of our guy's negative status effects are being partially erased. He can feel like part of the experience that was blocked is finally entering his body. Meanwhile, someone enters Clark's room and says the banquet has begun. He celebrates and orders no one to approach the two of them, while wondering what the hell happened that day. The boy didn't resist, and yet Clark felt something strange. It was like his magic didn't resonate. Even though he's retired, he's still a 5-circle knight. A young mage with no mana should not be able to do something like that. Something terrible must have happened that day. But today, he's sure he'll get the information he needs. Looking at the bracelet, he's sure the humiliation will be hundreds of times worse. Sometime later, the banquet is over and the two of them are stuffed. Ryu says he's ready to die, but our boy says, unfortunately, he's not. Now his body was full of energy and strength, the same feeling he had when he spent the whole day punching the sandbag. The door opens and he turns around saying that they finally arrived, already asking Clark what he plans to do now that they've eaten everything. Clark starts to say something, but our boy tells him to wipe off that sad smile. He should be disappointed. There wasn't even a little bit left. Clark, though, is just getting more and more pissed, saying that this bastard thinks too highly of himself just because of his bloodline. But it's all good. He puts a hand on his shoulder, thinking it's fine. He'll make the boy succumb to agony today. Poor old man, 40 years old, struggling to deal with a teenager. Ah, now it's revealed. Clark wants to take advantage of having someone from the Arahan family there to extract information. Any detail about how that family works is worth good money. He then activates the power of the bracelet, and Zed notices it instantly. That man is a magical tool. Clark asks what he's thinking about that sensation. But of course, Zed is just standing there, completely fine. Ryu is nearly fainting and collapses to the side. Then Zed tells Clark he should behave a little better. Clark loses it and goes in with both hands on Zed's shoulders. But nothing happens. Zed just gives his hand a little pat. And now, apparently, the fight is about to start. Because he tells Clark that he warned him to take it easy. If he wanted to kill someone, he should have done it the proper way and not just keep whining. Clark, though, was all twisted up, not understanding why his magical tool isn't working. That would only be possible if the kid had a magical circle above his. But at his age, there's no way. That doesn't make sense at all. Which only leaves one other option. He must have some kind of bloodline from the Arahans that cancels out powers. Clark, man, to get to the 5th circle, he had to train and practice hard his whole life. But even if failed mage discarded by the family can resist this artifact, suddenly the item shuts off. And Zed asks if he's finally going to stop with this nonsense. Apparently, Clark gives up on threatening him and just lowers his head, saying that he can resist all he wants. Now that the decree has come down from the Majesty, he'll be executed tomorrow morning. He should enjoy his last night in this world. Sometime later in his room, he's making some notes. Even though he couldn't learn much, he's writing it all down. The problem is that he's dozing off, exhausted. His mana was used to the limit to activate that artifact. He wants to finish the report, but the pen slips from his hand. A while later, Ryu wakes up in the room, and Zed wants to know if he's finally getting up. He tells him to stop complaining, even if he feels nauseous or like throwing up. But our boy compliments him, saying he really does have fast hands. Aw man, I wasn't going to say anything, but I felt that moment when he leaned forward to fall. It was suspicious. I thought he's sitting down and falls forward, got up just to fall again. Weird, right? But now there's the reason, man. Our boy praises him, saying he did a good job. For anyone else, it would have been insane, but he was really quiet and sneaky. Ryu, though, says it only worked because Zed distracted Clark, and he wants to know if he's really okay after all that. Our boy says he is, and then Ryu says there's definitely something shady about him. At that moment, Zed decides to ignore that and check his status. Mana is still at 0, but now everything else went down to -40, meaning he's a bit stronger. That steak really made a difference. His body is becoming more and more comfortable to inhabit, and he can't even imagine how good it'll feel with 100% stats. Then he tells his friend they're going to have to escape tonight. So if he's recovered, it's time. Ryu says this is madness. Clark is going to notice them showing up any second now. But our guy, obviously aware, says not to worry. He's probably sleeping. Ryu is curious, but the reason is obvious, right, folks? That bracelet Clark used pulls an absurd amount of mana from the body, but it causes exhaustion right after. And since Zed saw the item shut off earlier, he knows the guy is asleep. All thanks to the fact that he was taken to that room. And this guy walks around with the keys. The plan was easy. The time to leave had come, and the two of them get up. Ryu is hesitant, but our boy says the hard part is already over. He kicks the bars, and they fall right down, bro. It's not like a few bits of metal were going to stop him. Obviously, on the outside. The first guards already react, wanting to know what he thinks he's doing. To which Zed replies, "Isn't it obvious, bro? I'm escaping this place." Didn't even see what hit them, and the two are already outside, running through the yard. But turns out those damn organized guards are already lined up at the gate. Oh, poor guys who showed up to stop him, man. Just look at the guy in the middle. Bro, you've got 0 chance. The guards shout at Zed to stop, but Zed just rushes forward, scaring Ryu. The first guy in the way looks like he's got 6 kids Zed's age. He runs past, dodging easily, then plants a hand right in the guy's face, slamming one guard into another like playing bowling with dudes. Poor guards are already all laid out, bent and twisted. Before the second one could react, bam, a hit straight to the jugular. A clean tap that knocked the air right out of him. Zed keeps moving in from the right, and now the rest were basically getting eaten alive. He kicks the first guy he threw, while the ones behind are more focused on defending than attacking. Some fool tries a sword swing, but Zed ducks under it and lands a heel kick straight in the guy's ribs. The guy practically fell on his feet. Zed even blocked the next sword swing with a hand on the ground. Another kick. Man, this dude is the king of Taekwondo. Another fool went face first into the dirt, and 2 more poor souls came from behind. And look at the psycho's face, huh? Enjoying himself like always. I don't even know what he did, but he landed a kick on one guy that knocked him into the other. Meanwhile, Ryu can't even believe what he's seeing. Sometime later, just look at Clark's face now, totally dumbfounded, realizes he fell asleep at the worst possible time. His guys are all wrecked on the ground begging for forgiveness. Unfortunately, number 218 had escaped. Obviously, he gives the order immediately to start the hunt. But the scene shifts now, to a hotel in a village near the detention center. Ryu is looking around, checking if anyone's coming. Obviously, he and our boy stand out a lot in those orange uniforms. At least Ryu knows the whole area, so he starts showing Zed around and explaining how things work. First thing they needed to do was blend in better with the locals. So they hit up a beggar's stash to steal his clothes, bro, saying that was the best way to hide. Ryu says he'll go grab some food, and our boy asks how, since they don't have any money. But the little thief is a femboy, right, bro? He's gonna steal it easy. And he even tells Zed to just wait there like a side character. He'll be right back. 1 or 2 hours later, our boy has a different colored eye. That's because the thief even brought him a contact lens. They're in the southern region where people adore the old hero, and that's why blue eyes are kind of a trendy item. Our boy guesses it might be because of the clan that the main character Torres Barrel belonged to. That was the Sword X family, and their enemies obviously were the Arahans. Just like they hated each other and were opposites, even the eye color was different, and obviously for that reason, he couldn't go around flashing those glowing red eyes. Sometime later, they're in a cabin in the forest. It's kind of like the beginning after the end, where the protagonist gets lost in the forest with the elf girl. Except here, in this case, it's with the femboy instead. And only now is reality starting to hit Zed. He's wondering how the hell he ended up inside a game, and what kind of situation is this where now he has to sleep in a stable. But the madman says that at least life is fun. What Zed really wants to know is why this crazy guy Ryu is always glued to him. Also, it seemed like the guy kept calling him a side character, which didn't make any sense. He still needs help, so he'll keep Ryu close for now. But he needs to be careful. He doesn't know him well yet. He doesn't know how long he can trust this person. Thanks, man. Our boy's all lonely, huh? Though it does make sense, right? He was 40 years old, spent all of his time fighting and playing games. There wasn't a single soul in that house. Next morning, he wakes up and is already impressed that none of this was a dream. Ryu says he's impressed that a noble like Zed can sleep in a place like this. Zed asks him if he likes this place, and his friend just says something obvious, right, bro? There's no such thing as liking when you're poor. You sleep wherever you can. Even though our boy hijacked this guy's life halfway through, he was also super rich in his previous life. And like a good capitalist, bro, he gets up and says it's time to make money. You can't level up and get strong if you don't even have a place to sleep or eat. Ryu says that's going to be really hard. They're definitely being hunted by Clark, and soon enough they'll be found. Zed asks if he's talking about stealing, but our boy says that's impossible. There's no way to steal enough to get rich in a place like this. First, they'd have to make money in a fair and honest way. In other words, the arena, right boys? And there we are in the underground arena, where sand flies and it's face-to-face, forehead to forehead. Look at that smug little grin. If there's one place he feels at home, it's right there. And now that I realize it, doesn't this dude kind of look like a male Mikasa from Attack on Titan? Little scarf, that black hair, like it's Mikasa? Incredible. And there they are, bro, in the crowd in the madness of the fights. Ryu, of course, already says he must be thinking something weird, because this must be the wrong place. But the madman says no way, this place is perfect. Man, the guy's biting someone's shoulder, but then bam, gets cannon punched in the mouth. It's pure brawling. No rules here, bro. Punches to the ribs, bites wherever you can get him. It's chaos. The crowd's cheering, loving it, while Ryu is horrified and our boy is celebrating. The fight level was better than he expected. He thought it'd be a bunch of amateurs, but turns out they're not so bad after all. Then Walmart Yujiro Hama comes running in and lands a solid one on the big guy. The guy suffers for a second. Actually, more than a second, because he gets hit with a whole combo. Ryu is freaked out, telling Zed to rethink Thiz, but then he notices his friend had disappeared. Everyone in the audience is panicking, bro. Hama has blood on his hands. But look who's standing there holding his arm. It's Zed, telling him to go a little easier. Walmart Yujiro is standing there, confused, bro. Of course, Ryu already thinks the guy lost his mind. And the girls in the crowd think this is the modern world, asking the ref if he got paid to let someone die. Yujiro rips his arm out of Zed's grip, asking if he's some kind of noble and if he has a death wish. But man, Zed says absolutely not. They should be able to tell just by looking. He's just some street kid. Then the crowd gets mad, telling Yujiro to beat up the brat who's interrupting the fight. Zed says that's fine then. He'll take responsibility with a fight that'll entertain everyone. Obviously, Ryu doesn't think it's a good idea and starts going off, ranting a million things in Zed's ear. But Zed tells him to calm down, saying all this friend needs to do is bet everything he has on him for this fight. Ryu doesn't want to. But Zed tells him to remember, bro, that meat they ate was way too good. So after this fight, they're gonna have another banquet. There he is, face to face. The other guy says he admires the kid for being crazy in the head. At least he doesn't look scared. But then something catches his attention. The kid's stance was active, his breathing seemed steady, and he was staring at him with a killer aura. Clearly, his posture was better than anyone else he'd ever seen in that ring. Suddenly, it's Yujiro who's shaking, telling himself it's impossible he's this scared of a kid. He decides to rush in, saying none of this makes sense. But he's immediately met with a cannon punch to the cheek, and boom, the nose faucet turns on. And Zed even plays the coach, telling the guy, "You never start a fight throwing a punch behind the shoulder." He already starts throwing a combo at the poor guy who's trying to dodge, but keeps getting popped right in the jaw. Our boy explains that you always keep your arm forward. It serves both for defense and offense. Poor Yujiro is eating a full face of machine gun punches. Zed just keeps that arm forward, defense, and attack. Yujiro's face is getting all swollen up while Ryu has his eyes shut, praying, and he slowly opens them just in time to see the poor fool already kneeling in the dirt. Meanwhile, Mikasa's over there, all smug smiles, "Huh, bro." Ryu can't believe it, but I don't know how he can't believe it. Did he not see Zed beat down a prison full of people? Poor Yujiro, man. He's trying to open his eyes, seeing blurry shapes. He can't believe he's about to lose to a kid like this right in front of everyone. He tries one last punch, but Zed dodges with ease and goes full beatdown again. One last clean hit right in the middle of the pit, and he falls flat on his back. Our boy already turns to the ref and tells him to call the match. He won, but right, bro, this is a betting house. And the guy knows if he declares Zed the winner, a lot of people are gonna be mad. But he doesn't really have much choice. Yujiro's not getting up. So that's it. Zed's declared the winner. Obviously, the smug one says the fight wasn't even enough for a warm-up. Sometime later, with a bag of coins in hand, he asks his friend why there's only this much. In theory, it was 60 people betting against him and only one in favor. The betting guy says the calculation is correct. He followed the exact process. Zed insists. With the amount that was bet, it should have been way more. He calls for Ryu, and just by the look on his face, it's clear he didn't bet everything on bro. Right then, someone tall approaches, long blue hair walking up, and we can already see the storyteller's talent. Huh. Little red dress. Only problem is, she's got villain face. Like no way she's gonna be a friend to our boy. She's clearly gonna bring nothing but trouble. She walks up saying she wants to have a little chat, but he just asks, "Who are you?" Man, the world's not even modern, but this one's already got filler done. Look at the size of that lower lip. She says that for him not to know who she is, this must be his first time here. She's the owner of the arena, known as Herna. But Zed already walks past her, saying it's good to know, but he's not in the mood for talking. Ryu's already noticing. This is not going to end well. And two gigantic guys, bro, already blocked the way like a wall in front of our boy. And boldly, he looks 90 degrees up and asks if everyone wants to end up on the ground. The iron-jawed dudes are all confused, thinking the kid's gone completely crazy. From behind, Herna says that the warrior he defeated was brought in from the big city. He needs to understand what that means. She will let him go today, but he can be sure they'll meet again. Somewhere much more relaxing. Ooh boy, this one's dangerous. She plays this kind of dangerous game. Run boy, and she says she really likes very strong boys. Yikes. Looks like he slipped away just fine though, because there we are the next day at a bar, and Ryu's exhausted, saying that Zed's crazy in the head for acting that confident in front of that woman. He has to understand, she runs that whole place. Our boy though says she just seems like an old fox addicted to money. Ryu says he's right about that. She's known as the fox around here, meaning she probably tried to get close to him to gain some kind of advantage. But man, it's not the first time Zed's been seen as a genius. As soon as he started getting famous and winning a bunch of fights, a million calls started coming in, everyone offering contracts and endless options. Back then, he was a bit more naive and got scammed several times. But by sheer luck, he found his manager, the one who made him a champion. Obviously, all of that taught him very clearly what it takes to reach the top. Since he called her an old fox for her wisdom, soon they'd find out who was really wiser. The fancy meat they ordered is served. Ryu already wants to dig in, but our boy tells him to wait. Clearly, they were being scammed. This was far from the quality they'd ordered. This wasn't that ultra-rare steak. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to serve it to everyone in the bar. Ryu says, whatever, I'm hungry. Once the steak hits your belly, it's all the same. But Zed says if they paid for a birdie steak, that's exactly what they're gonna get. He calls over one of the waiters, who immediately says if he's going to complain, he better leave because no one likes his presence there. Zed completely ignores what the guy said and just says, "This steak is fake. You'd better bring the real one before complaining about me." The waiter asks if he's lost his mind. Our boy tells him to call the boss, and now the guy's certain this street kid is nuts. But he says fine. If he really wants to meet the boss, then follow him. Obviously, this doesn't lead anywhere good. Inside the boss's office is a fat guy and a bunch of goons, already pointing knives at the door. The guy asks if he's the customer causing trouble, To which Zed just replies that the ones causing trouble are the people selling fake stuff in this place. The fat guy sends the first goon forward, saying the kid doesn't understand the situation he's in. But Zed's already smiling. Another little fight for him to enjoy. The bar guys, poor things, all rushing just to get smacked in the face like always. Another one gets his arm broken, then a hit to the neck of one, dodges another, lands a clean shot, and throws the guy on his back. The fat boss, who was celebrating at first, is already starting to see the situation turning bad for him. The whole group is lying on the floor with something broken, and Zed is standing in the middle of them all. Ryu tells them to be careful, that this is the kid who took down Walmart Yujiro, and apparently the fat guy had heard a similar story, but thought it was just a rumor. Now he wants to know, what does Zed want? The boys approach and say he's actually quite reasonable. First, they'll give back the money he paid. Second, they'll pay for the steak he ate, at the price of the real Birdie steak. The fat guy screams, saying they're just a bunch of little crooks. But he's probably screwed, huh, bro? Because Mike falls and Ryu's in bed all happy, celebrating and saying he's never slept in a place this soft. He then turns over and praises our boy, saying he really is amazing, as expected of a noble from a powerful family. Zed says it's easy to negotiate when you have power, right, bro? And with that, another night falls. As always, man, Ryu's there with that peculiar look on his face in the middle of the night, out of nowhere. Suddenly, he gets up and calls for Zed. He asks if he's ready. Our boy doesn't answer, so Ryu gets up and leaves. But obviously, right, man, Zed was awake the whole time and saw the whole thing. A few days pass. Ryu walks into the room saying he's starving. He wants to know what time they're going out to eat. Zed, as always, has been training all day. Ryu asks how it's possible for him not to take even a single break. The protagonist stands up and takes a look at his stats. He says, unfortunately, they're not going up anymore. No matter how much he trains or checks, Mana is still stuck at 0. Maybe it's because he's going from nothing to 1, right? That's the hardest part. It's taking a bit longer. He turns to Ryu, saying training is over, and it's time for them to go get a steak for breakfast. It's been 3 days since they last went, giving the guys a chance to recover. Because the last few times they went, they ate 10 portions, and in the end, the staff had to pay them. Then Zed asks Ryu how many coins they still have. He replies that they're almost out, because the cost of living in this city is crazy high. Zed says he understands. But man, the truth is, this is a game he played for 10 years. He knows the economy very well. 50 gold coins, what they earned, is not the kind of thing you burn through in a couple days like that. Maybe Ryu thinks he's an idiot, just a noble who doesn't understand how the world works. And now Zed wants to know, is it greed? What's he hiding? Or does he have some kind of addiction? For now, he'll keep pretending he hasn't noticed anything, because he hasn't seen any sign of betrayal. But eventually, he's going to need to understand why. Already at the bar, one of the guys opens the door and tells the boss that they're here. And this time, they've got a plan, man. He tells the guy to make sure everyone's ready. As soon as our boy shows up, he's welcomed with a candlelight banquet. The waiter says he hopes our boy feels at home. Obviously, Zed already finds this weird, and wants to know why they're being so friendly out of nowhere. The moment they walked in, he looked around. Didn't spot any assassins. The restaurant looked the same as always. Interrupting his thoughts, Ryu wrapped a bit of meat in lettuce and told him to take a bite. Our boy grabbed his hand and said, all right, he'd eat, but he'd keep an eye on everything around them. But obviously, as soon as he bites it, he feels something off, and tells Ryu to spit it out. He throws it out immediately, of course, wanting to know what kind of poison nonsense this is. Zed says the amount is small. It's not going to kill them, but something's clearly going on. He opens up his status screen, and now understands why the staff was being so friendly. Obviously, with absolute poison resistance, nothing happens to him. But the problem is that after eating a lot, he'd eventually die just the same. Ryu wants to know if he's really sure it's poison. He didn't smell anything, didn't notice anything, so why can't they eat it? Zen just says it's because he's an Arahan, just to change the subject, which makes Ryu mad. He says, so it's like that? This snob really is on a different level. That's when the protagonist smiles, saying it's time to make these guys pay for trying something like that. Sometime later, the boss shows up, clearly pissed, wanting to know what the kids want with him. Zed is sitting at the back of the table and says he's just curious and had a few questions. But the boss notices that all the plates are empty, so they ate it all, and the poison should kick in any second. But then he says he's not here to answer anything. He's not going to talk to people who just want to extort money from him. Zed says that, as he can see, the boss is completely misunderstanding the situation. He tells Ryu to give their friend a bit of meat so they can talk over a meal. Obviously, Ryu hands over that meat roll that's probably been in his hand for like 40 minutes, and the fat guy is just standing there, right, wanting to know why they're offering something like that. Our boy says it's a peace offering. If the guy accepts eating it, then he'll accept any condition afterward. The boss says he's not interested. He has no intention of making peace with the kid. Zed wants to know if maybe the guy just really loves giving him money, or if there's another reason he doesn't want to eat that. Like, say, if it were poisoned. The chubby guy stutters trying to reply, and Zed already says he messed up thinking he was going to walk out of this easily. He kicks the table, and all the meat they were supposed to eat hits the floor. Zed says he'd been going easy, but Trash Like Him really does enjoy suffering, huh? Even so, the fat guy slaps the wall, saying there's no poison, and if they show any proof, he'll admit it. Our boy goes for his eye and removes the contact lens, saying that is all the proof he needs. Upon seeing the red eye, the guy knows immediately he's an Arahan. He falls on his butt, totally scared, afraid he's going to die. In just a second, he's already on his knees begging for forgiveness, saying he didn't realize he was a noble. The guy's sobbing, desperate, wanting to know why a kid from a family like that is wandering around pretending to be a beggar. At that moment, Zed realized something. The Arahan name held way more power than he imagined. He asks if the fat guy will do anything he says, to which the man replies yes. Zed says his first condition is that he can't tell anyone about his identity. The guy agrees. Then Zed gives the second condition. He has to hand over half of all his money, and in return, Zed will act like none of this ever happened. Apparently, the Arahan family is really dangerous, because I thought the fat guy was going to say, that's too much. But nope, he just agrees and says he's going to get it right away. He runs out saying he better hand it over quickly, before the kid changes his mind. Zed puts the lenses back in, and Ryu praises him, saying that his name really scared the guy. He didn't even have the guts to say anything, but Zed already warns that this will be their last night in this city. But look who walks in just at that moment, wanting to know what the rush is all about. The two of them turn to see Herna walk in with arms crossed, saying they've finally met again. She praises our boy, saying he's even more impressive than she imagined. Now Zed's hesitating, not sure if she found out he belongs to the Arahan family. It would make sense, and he sees the fat guy shaking his head no back and forth, so that probably isn't the case. Which means maybe she got some info from the prison. If the fat guy finds out he's an abandoned Arahan, the deal will be off, so he has to wrap this up quickly. He says fine, he'll accept a private conversation with her. Now face to face at the table, he asks why she's here or why she's been looking for him. Herna tilts her head to the side and says he's misunderstanding again. She didn't come here for him. She had a meeting with a client there. At that moment, Zed realizes, that client is Ryu, who apologizes for doing something like that. Herna says she's sorry, but unfortunately, she still hasn't been able to fulfill her side of the deal. Ryu stands up angrily, saying that's not what they agreed to, and that he's already paid a lot of money. But Herna says it's impossible to find someone who disappeared that long ago. They could be alive or dead. Zed finally realizes what's going on, and says they'll settle this a different way. Since she wants to negotiate with him, then she'll be negotiating with both of them. In other words, our boy will help her if she solves Ryu's problem first. Herna thanks him and says her request is going to be real simple. All she wants is for him to fight Walmart Yujiro one more time. Ryu says it's clearly a trap, but right then Zed already accepts it. Bro. Lip filler face is already reminiscing, saying not to worry, she'll hold up her end of the deal. Sometime later they're walking back through the streets, and Ryu's there holding a little coin pouch. Zed asks why he's making that face. They made a ton of money. But Ryu's apologizing, saying he didn't want to hide things from him from the start. Since she knows the city and everyone who passes through it, he figured she'd be a good source of info. But yeah, you should have told Zed beforehand. Zed says it's fine. Besides, he knew from the beginning that Ryu was stealing money. Ryu's a little shocked he knew, but Zed says, just so he doesn't feel too bad. He only just figured out that the money was going to Herna. Ryu wants to know why he didn't say anything, and our boy just says it's because he doesn't care. The help Ryu had been giving was worth more than those coins. But he does say, he doesn't let things slide like that all the time. From now on, Ryu better not hide anything else. No matter where he was born, he can't act like garbage. Bro, what do you mean by that? You saying everyone who's poor is garbage? You bastard, come here so I can sock you. But Ryu's already teary-eyed, apologizing, swearing he'll never do it again. Even so, he begs our boy not to join the fight. They could just take the money and vanish from this place. Zed asks, how's he going to get info about his brother if they run away now? To which Ryu says he already figured it out. That woman's going to scam them again. Zed thinks about it. Ryu's not an idiot, so it's clear that him going to Herna meant he was desperate. He knew it was a bad offer, knew the chances were low, but he had no other choice. Meanwhile, that Dan Herna was the type to take advantage of desperate kids and leave them behind. And yeah, he admits he wanted to run away too, but he changed his mind. Ryu begs him to drop it. Obviously, he trusts Zed's skills now. But even so, Herna's definitely going to rig something. But Zed just says that's exactly why he wants to fight. Nothing better than cleaning up trash that's in your way. He's sure she's gone all out prepping this guy. Every cheat possible, all to make Zed lose, which makes it perfect. Meanwhile, back at the prison, man, I almost forgot about these guys. They're still out hunting for our boy. One of them comes to report to Clark that all the troops are ready. He slams the table, saying now they're finally going to take out that Dan rat that's been hiding right under their nose. From today, That damn Arahan doesn't leave alive. 3 days later, we're in the middle of the arena. Walmart Yujiro is raising his arms up, saying today he's going to kill the kid. Zed is amazed this guy's still so confident after getting his butt kicked so hard, and Ryu's still insisting he back out, saying they can still run any time. But there they are, face to face. The fight everyone's been waiting for, bro. The fancy twirly guy versus the city beggar. Suddenly fell. The look on everyone's face in the stands changes, and Ryu says things just got serious. Strangely enough, the guy had taken on the exact same stance as Zed. Yujiro is thinking that Herna better have a solid plan, and that's the only reason he even came back. No way there's an Arahan without mana. That wouldn't make any sense. But he was abandoned in prison, so maybe that's why. He decides to rush in, saying he's going to find out for himself. Our boy dodges the first move, while now it's Yujiro who's giving out tips. He says he practiced what Zed told him and really noticed it was useful. Our boy is dodging, impressed that the guy actually listened to what he said and practiced. But then suddenly, he notices the way the guy's positioning himself, and bam, he whips him on the side of the head. Man, Yujiro was left all twisted up with smoke coming out of his forehead. But out of nowhere, he starts smiling. Says the loser really doesn't have any mana. People in the crowd say that weirdly enough today he seems really tough. Everyone's cheering for him by name. But Zed already knew what it was. The Overbelt, an item that negates 90% of physical damage, which is just absurd in a fight like this. Normally it's easy to beat someone wearing it, since all you have to do is use mana. But in Zed's case, well, he doesn't have any mana. Ryu's over in the corner, trying to understand what's happening. Why this guy's resisting Zed's attack so easily. He tells him to be careful. Clearly that woman did something. But Zed's smiling. He tells Ryu just to watch and pay attention. His friend doesn't get it. Why the heck is he smiling like that? Meanwhile, Yujiro asks if he's going to give up. Suddenly, Zed lets his shoulders drop and says he's actually surprised. Yujiro immediately notices. The boy's fighting stance had changed. He was going to ask Zed something, but he just got smashed on the side of the head. Even with 90% resistance, his ear was already purple and turning necrotic. A kick to the stomach. He starts stumbling backwards, confused as to how he's even taking real damage with that belt. But man, of our boy Zed had a grin on his face. It's not every day he gets to fight using 100% of his strength. Whenever he did that in the ring, within less than a minute, the other guy was already unconscious on the ground. Because of that, he'd never really been able to go all out before. But there was a guy standing in front of him, taking all those kicks, and still on his feet. That was the first time he'd seen something like that. And instantly, he wanted to kick him some more, to see what it felt like again. Yujiro throws his arms up, convinced another high kick is coming. But then he gets slammed in the ribs. His guard drops. He takes one in the face, goes to block low, and gets hit in the gut. The poor guy couldn't even tell where the attacks were coming from anymore. That was it. He couldn't even see what was happening in the fight anymore. While Zed is telling him not to dare collapse now, Yujiro tries to say he gives up and takes another one to the chin. The crowd is stunned, and now our boy breaks the belt. The item shatters. Yujiro feels a chill go down his spine and collapses to his knees. Right then, the protagonist asks him why he's not getting back up. Man, Yujiro was about to apologize again and say he forfeits, but gets another shot right to the face. Zed's not letting him say the word forfeit. That wasn't nearly enough yet. But just then, Yujiro sees something strange. Zed's contact lens was breaking apart, and he could see the red eye underneath. The guy was about to say the name Arahan, but passed out cold, falling backward. Suddenly, the protagonist feels something strange in his chest, like some kind of alien energy coursing through his body. He decides to open up the system window, and man, just like you guessed, finally his mana had gone from 0 to 1. It might not be much, but to him, the feeling was way better than expected. Because yeah, man, he's got an S-rank Archmage talent, so that makes a huge difference. But then he notices, strangely, the whole place had gone silent. Ryu comes running and asks why he took the lenses out. Zed bro, he just points to himself and asks, "Can everyone see my eye?" And Ryu says, obviously. Not only that, his eye looked even redder now, almost glowing. From the stands, everyone recognized it instantly and shouted the name, Arahan. Nobody had any doubts. They just took off running, bro, shouting that anyone seen by those eyes dies. My god, what the heck did his family do in this world, man? Just seeing the eye color was enough to make everyone bolt. Not even Itachi, if the Mangekyo Sharingan caused that much fear, bro. Right then, Zed ran off too, saying that soon the guards were going to show up, so they better disappear quick. Meanwhile, Miss Fat Lips over there was fuming, saying she never should have listened to that damn guy from the prison. She gets up, saying that now she's going to have to deal with this Zed guy herself. Obviously, she's furious because she lost a fortune, since that guy she hired, right man, wasn't cheap. Not to mention that belt cost over 200 gold coins and was destroyed. At that moment, she knows that damn brat already made her lose around 2,000 coins. She's screaming in rage, puts her hand on her face saying she should have listened to that guy and killed that brat from the start. Meanwhile, our boy and Ryu, man, they're already getting ready to leave that place. The problem is that now there were guards everywhere. Sometime later, Ryu comes out of a barrel asking if things are finally calm. He tells the boy to stay there because he's going to get a carriage so they can leave. But right then, a guy with orange hair stops and says that Herna sent him. She has some information that Ryu is looking for and that he should go talk to her. Besides, they'd better know there wouldn't be any other carriages running in that city. I thought the boys were going to run away, but there they go again, going to meet up with the crazy lady. Will obviously knows it's a trap, and Zed already knows too. The friend thinks it's crazy, but Zed says if they don't take care of this now, the problem will follow them for the rest of their lives, so it was time to finish it. And just like he imagined, a little while later, there's Herna with all the guards. Even that bastard Clark Mustache showed up, man, all crooked, thinking he's not going to lose. And Clark guarantees that if someone dirty like those two really did steal a key and run away like that. Herna is laughing, says he was an idiot. If he'd have stayed on her side, things wouldn't have turned out like this. But Zed says that even if he could go back in time, his choice wouldn't change. Besides, he wasn't planning to die quietly. At that moment, Clark draws his sword and says Zed Arahan will be executed right now and no one should interfere. The protagonist just tells Ryu to stay back. And Clark says it's comical. The boy really thought he had a chance in this fight. Honestly, for a mage, he was brave. Our boy says he has a 50% chance of winning. That actually is kind of a psychological game he plays with himself. Against someone stronger than him, he always believes that because then he doesn't give up. At least he has a chance. And against someone weaker, he doesn't get too careless either, since that person also has a chance. This little guy's got quite the strong mindset. To him, it didn't matter how strong the five-circle knight was. The odds were still 50-50. Either he wins or he loses. Then Clark starts coating his blade in aura and says the boy is confident until the end. His aura expands and he warns that the boy will die confident either way. Then he charges forward, calling out to Zed Arahan and telling him to die. The protagonist just watches him coming, saying that was exactly what he wanted. He didn't want much, just the opportunity to risk his life and the chance to lose. At that moment, he became a challenger once more. And the signature expression of the rank S determined challenger activates. All his attributes temporarily increase by 10. He sees Clark's blade coming and a purple explosion hits the ground. He calls out for Zed, and in the middle of the smoke, Clark is standing there silently. He had opened a crater in front of him, but where was the boy? That's when someone tells the captain to look up, man. There were some lightning bolts coming. Huh, what's this? Out of nowhere, the boy was flying and glowing. What's happening here, man? He activated the Reborn Thunder transformation. Ah, I get it. He gained 10% more in all stats, probably got more mana. And now he has enough to use power. He's an S-rank Archmage. That little transformation kind of reminds you of Killua's, doesn't it? When he has all Lightning Eye, except this one's the golden version. Our boy immediately charges in, Clark is surprised and has to defend against the flying kick. Man, he was already a beast in hand-to-hand combat, now he's gonna beat people down with magic. The fool is pushed back and keeps wondering how this is even possible. He can't believe a brat like that could have Lightning Kai. Unlike the basic elements, almost no one had resistance to lightning. But this was an element that not even the founder of the Arahan clan was supposed to have. So why did this discarded brat have that power? The guards and that fool Herna are all standing there with their jaws on the floor. Ryu off to the side isn't even impressed anymore. Clark, though, stomps the ground firmly, thinking this is what he hates the most, people who have everything handed to them just because of their bloodline. He slashes towards Zed, saying he hates people like him, when our boy just does a Matrix-style dodge backwards. Man. Clark insists, sending a cross slash, while our boy dodges one, dodges another, and starts getting closer. Clark, however, had managed to slash for the side of his head and was sure the kid wouldn't dodge this one. But his sword seemed to collide with some kind of electric barrier. The kid kind of had a natural shield, and now he was right next to him, landing a solid hit in the ribs, and damn, that frame is beautiful. Take that in the chest, fool. While he's writhing in the electricity. Man, the Korean moon is going wild. A purple explosion hits, and the guy's back. Yeah, he's something. The problem is, man, the guy was already the king of dodging, and now he's all electrified. Dodges another strike, comes from the side, and lands another one on the chin. Clark can't understand why this kid is fighting like this. He was supposed to be a mage. Obviously, mages use barriers and stay at a distance to cast spells. And that's why when a knight gets close, they're always defeated. That was kind of the law of this world, and a law that had never been broken. And that's why this kid in front of him made no sense. More lightning flying around and Clark trying to hold the attacks back. It was the first time he had seen a mage of this style, so he had no strategy. He decided to change plans and back off to use those long-range sword-slash attacks. But Zed is way faster, and in a second, he's face-to-face again, landing another punch right to the face. Clark couldn't see any openings and takes another one in the gut. Man, now he got launched all the way to the other side, crashing into a tree. The poor guy's spitting out like 3 liters of blood while the soldier beside him asks if he's okay. One thing's clear, he's a man of honor, man, because even with the others trying to help, he says nobody should get involved. Then he turns to the boy and says that really, he lost to Arahan. At the very least, he should be killed now. But Zed asks if the guy wants to know why he lost. Clark says no, just kill him already and stop being annoying. But Zed doesn't care, he says he's going to tell him anyway. He says the only reason he lost is because Zed's been training way more and putting in the effort. Obviously, that hits Clark's weak spot, and he says it's ironic. Someone with a bloodline like is talking about effort and training. The strength he has is simply because he was born with Arahan blood. He really has no idea what true effort looks like, effort from someone with no talent at all. But Zed responds that he's sure Clark should have been stronger than him at that age. If he'd have fought better and trained to become even stronger, he shouldn't have lost now. But he's blinded by this inferiority complex. Besides, a knight should never blame another person for their own defeat. Clark stays silent and says, yeah, that's ironic, while thinking he never imagined that a kid like this would remind him of the true code of a knight. Then he tells Arahan to just end it already and kill him. The problem is, Zed knows that if he kills this guy, someone known as the Five-Circle Knight, he's going to start being hunted. But he also couldn't let him walk around out there talking about him to everyone. At that moment, the Challenger talent and the Lightning talent deactivate. He suddenly raises his hand and everyone in the forest screams, asking what he's doing. Herna orders the guards to kill him now. Surrounded by everyone, Zed thinks this number of people isn't ideal. But suddenly, he looks back and a strange mist starts approaching. The whole place gets covered by this energy, and he's trying to figure out whether it's a mage or someone approaching. The situation was worse than he thought, and he needed to escape. Suddenly, the mist seems to settle a bit. But in the next second, when he opens his eyes, everyone in front of him is dead. Man, he didn't even get to kill Herna, and nobody even had time to scream. The strange part is that the bodies are full of scratch-like cuts, and even Clark was killed. Then Zed remembers Ryu, looks back and calls for him. All awkward and bent over, he shows up from the bushes, saying he's fine. His friend asks if it was him who did that, and our boy says no, there must be some high-ranking mage nearby. Whatever it is, it's best they leave as fast as possible. Then Ryu sees a card among the bodies and tells him to check it out. It was way too clean and looked like it was deliberately thrown there. The two of them are leaving while someone watches them from up in a tree. Nothing suspicious about this hooded guy, right? If I had to guess, I'd say it's an Arahan who was watching to see if he'd get executed in prison, but now sees the boy as the real deal and is thinking, better protect this kid. He's the future of the family. And you guys, what do you think? Place your bets. Who do you think this guy is, huh? Tell us. Sometime later in the forest, he made a little campfire and is there looking at the sheet of paper, which was blank, until suddenly he puts a bit of mana into it and a symbol appears. It was a magic card that's actually used by secret organizations to kind of exchange encrypted messages, man. And Zed recognizes the symbol as that of the Black Mirror, a group that swore absolute loyalty to the Arahan and helps them with secret missions. When it comes to secret organizations, they're the biggest in the Empire. And on the back of the letter, you could see the number 4. If he's not mistaken, number 1 means accept or basically affirm. Number 2 is reject, number 3 is a proposal, and number 4 is observation and protection. Yeah, my guess didn't last long. That's no fun, right? I was right away. Looks like he really is being protected by someone from the Arahans. He finds it strange since in theory he doesn't have any mana, but then he remembers. Yeah man, now he does, he has 3, speaking of which. Considering it went up by 2 after defeating Clark, you can tell it works like experience in a game. Plus, now he's unlocked the lightning form, something that not only boosts his physical abilities but also creates a shield. Obviously though, he only has mana to activate it when using that Challenger talent. Then Ryu calls out to our boy and says he can't sleep. He wants to know where they're going and what they're gonna do. Our boy says that's obvious. They're going to the city of Frilda. That's the last place they heard about his brother. All they have to do is keep moving. Ryu, though, says maybe his brother isn't even there anymore. Besides, you couldn't even get to Frilda without using a carriage. Zed says he already knows that, and the route is going to be a little different. First, they'll pass through Tamaya. That village is the front line of the southern defense barrier. At that moment, a magic circle appears on the ground and a knight shows up through it. Whoa, man, isn't that blonde knight the character our boy used to play as when he beat the Demon King? Along with him, an army starts appearing, and he swears that he, Torres Bahal, is going to hunt the Arahan who disgraced the name of that place. We then see him a bit earlier, kneeling down asking if someone called for him. He was face to face with the Lord, who says that a mission came specifically for the boy. An Arahan who was in a southern prison had escaped a few days ago. Not only did he kill the guards, but also other innocent people in the city, and he, as the successor of Bahal, must bring justice and honor to the family. The blonde guy immediately takes an oath that the orders will be obeyed. Meanwhile, in the middle of the forest, Ryub is saying this is madness. Zed just tells him to stop whining, saying it's been 5 days with the same talk. What the friend is complaining about is that they're the only idiots going straight into the front lines like this. On the Empire's map, you can see there are only a few exits, and outside the mountains, it's full of demonic beasts. Each of the major families is designated to guard one of these regions, and the south belongs to the Bahal family. The place they're going to is called Timaya, a village right on the front lines and one of the places where demonic beasts end to appear. On top of that, since it's an advanced base, there's a teleportation portal there. Obviously, it's something so expensive that not even nobles can use it easily. But our boy got a ton of money from betting and looting everything from Herna. Still, Ryu keeps complaining, saying he has no idea how terrifying a demonic beast is. Time passes and night falls once more. He was chatting a bit when Zed suddenly felt a strange vibration. The whole ground was shaking. In a low voice, he stood up and told Ryu to get ready. Something was coming. Right away, they put out the campfire and hid behind the bushes to watch the camp. Ryu was praying that it wasn't a demonic beast, while Zed was hoping that it was a demonic beast. The problem was that it wasn't just one or two vibrations. There were at least a dozen. And he knows it's very rare for that many demonic beasts to break past the barrier. Which means, man, it was exactly what he feared. Torres Bahal and the army were arriving. The guys were at least just passing by, and he was just praying that those 50-plus soldiers wouldn't spot them. But that's when one of the soldiers obviously detects the camp. Zed knows that if they're found, they have no chance. The minimum requirement to be in that group is to be a 5-circle knight. In other words, there were at least 50 Clarks there. Ryu says our boy should run. If he gets captured, there's a chance he'll survive. But Zed will definitely be killed. Our boy, though, tells him to stop shaking so much if he's going to say something like that. Besides, he didn't need to worry. He had an idea that maybe would work. The soldiers are all there checking around the camp. Then suddenly, someone from the bushes asks who they're looking for. Hey, you crazy fool, you're really gonna rely on that protection card, huh? He steps out saying he's Zed Arahan. He's doing this insane move because he knows that once the guys realize the camp is still warm, they'll start searching the entire area. They wouldn't be able to get away, and if they were found suddenly, it would be worse. But right when he goes to say he wants to talk to the leader, man, a sword almost slices his neck. He tries to explain that he just wants to talk first, but there's already another one at his back, man. He senses the presence and goes to activate a circle at his feet, but one of the guy's attacks seems to hit something. Between him and Zed there was nothing, but it got blocked. Our boy understands that it was the power, maybe, of the person who's been protecting him, and a voice tells the knight to stand down. The guy backs off instantly, and the rest of the soldiers order the person to reveal themselves. Zed knew someone was watching him, but he didn't expect that whoever it was had been this close. The human was right in front of him. He couldn't even feel their presence, not even with 100 perception. Well, man, and not just one person, but an entire squad was protecting him. Now that makes sense why the Arahans are so feared, right? I was wondering why everyone kept praising the Arahans, like, where are they? The problem now is that the protagonist is arriving, wanting to know who dares stand in the way of Bahal. Everyone celebrates the arrival of the successor, and the Black Mirror guys instantly recognize him as the so-called Bahal. For Zed, though, that presence was so familiar it felt like a part of him. The character he had played with the longest, the one who stayed with him until the end. It wasn't the time to be thinking about that, but he was feeling a bit nostalgic. Then Torres asks if he is Zed Arahan. Before Zed can answer, the guy just steps in front and tells him not to speak. Now Zed is trying to understand why these guys are going this far, and Torres then says he can finally meet the secret organization he'd always heard about. But he finds it crazy that they're acting like this even knowing who he is. The Arahan family had now crossed the line. He throws his sword into the air, saying that today they would pay the price with their heads. Suddenly, a voice says that's not going to happen. A red circle appears beneath all the soldiers. Zed recognizes the formation as a type of trap that has to be set up in advance. Which means this guy was not only smart enough to predict everything that would happen, but also a 7th circle mage. Then the guy says that anyone who steps out of the circle will cause an explosion. Standing still, Torres wants to know if the Arahan family wants a war with the Bahal. To which the hooded man says, as he already mentioned, it's better for them to back off, since not even Lord Bahal wants a war like this. But that's when Torres activates the blade's power again and tells them not to insult the Lord's name. Zed, however, knows that we're still kind of at the start of the game, and Torres is still a 6th circle guy and he has no chance of winning this. If he starts a fight right now, all the knights there will be annihilated. The madman, though, is already activating the lion's roar without a care. Even though it's a 7-circle technique, Zed is hoping the guy gives up, otherwise he's going to have to see everyone's bodies lying on the ground. Our boy asks the human to deactivate the magic circle before they all explode, but the hooded man turns and says they only follow the Lord's orders, and one of the commands he received was to protect Zed Arahan, and he can't do anything that would go against that. Zed then asks why, instead of protecting him, the guy is trying to kill the Bahal successor, which will only increase his chances of getting killed in the future. If he really was such a skilled assassin, he should be able to get out of there without killing this guy. Then he yells at Torres to stop too, or he'll end up dying, but the guy just tells him to shut up, saying that he killed countless innocent citizens and prison guards. He'd have to pay the price for every crime he committed. Zed tries to explain that it's a misunderstanding and that they can talk, but man, Torres is already charging in, saying they'll talk when he's on his knees. Zed notices the circle didn't explode, which at least means the guy didn't get killed right away. But then an explosion sweeps through the area and Ryu calls out to Zed. Torres' sword had been blocked by a barrier created by the secret organization guys, and even with just the block and the sword's shockwave, Torres dropped to his knees and coughed up blood. Zed, Dan him, even walks over and asks if the guy, now that he's on his knees, is ready for a little conversation. But Torres just faints and collapses nearly dead to the ground. The soldiers run over saying he's dead, but our boy explains it's just a mana backlash from overusing his energy. It's best to let him recover naturally and not even try anything. The healers are already trying to heal him. Yuzuji, though, knows this is mana backlash, and you can't heal someone's backlash if you're weaker than them. Obviously, the only ones stronger than him there are the Black Mirror guys, and our protagonist tells the guy to go ahead and heal Torres, which obviously freaks him out. He asks if Zed is seriously telling him to heal this night. Zed says that Torres is an old friend of his. I mean, it's not a lie, but it's kind of a suspicious statement. Obviously, the guy refuses to heal him, saying it's impossible that the two of them are friends. Zed then says that mages are usually smart. He wants to know if the guy really thinks that the death of an Arahan wouldn't lead to a large-scale war, and if that would be productive. But man, the guy just replies that the death of those successors would actually be good for the Arahans. Strangely though, Zed seems sure that's not true. Oh yeah, he knows, right? That in the future, demons are going to start invading, and they'll need everyone to win. The problem is he's running out of patience, and out of nowhere, he snaps man. He puts the sword to his own neck, saying that if the guy doesn't heal Torres, he'll die too. Which means, right, the masked man would fail his mission, since the mission is to protect him. The masked guy says even so, he can't act that way or the Lord would be furious. Zed says he doesn't care. He'll carry that burden himself. Suddenly, the masked man approaches Torres. His friends obviously hesitate, but Zed explains that the only person who can save Torres is someone stronger than him. If they don't accept the help, the guy will die right there. With that, Torres is finally healed and the soldier even gets a bit teary-eyed. At that exact moment, the Black Mirror guys vanish, as always, leaving behind a letter. Sometime later, near the village of Itamaya, our boy is standing in front of a tent, looking at card number 9. That one meant abandonment or survival. I think it means like, we're gone. We'll ask if that mist in the forest that killed everyone was also the Black Mirror, and our boy says yes. But now they're alone. Zed then notices something strange and asks Ryu how he knows about this organization. Ryu replies that everyone knows, it's common knowledge, even little kids in any town know about them. Zed can't believe it, a secret organization known by everyone. But Ryu warns that since everyone's watching them, they better be careful or they'll be killed at any moment. Zed, however, says there's no need to worry, that are knights who truly follow the knightly code. In other words, people who value honor. Mages, on the other hand, would kill a friend if it meant earning a few coins. The truth is, both sides are too extreme and kind of rational, but that actually makes things easier for him. With a knight, all you need is to challenge their sense of honor, and with a mage, all you need is an offer that brings profit. Then one of the knights shows up and says the Lord Hare wants to speak with him. Inside a tent sometime later, Torres talks with our boy. He starts by talking about tea, but our boy doesn't seem very interested. Then Torres gets straight to the point and asks about their situation. Zed replies that he's not very formal and wants to talk casually. They're both young, so they can keep it chill. Torres asks how old he is, and our boy says, in this body, I'm 15. Why does he always say the most suspicious things in the world? He just straight up tells everyone he's reincarnated, damn it. While the two are chatting, look, Ryu's over there taking notes that they're getting all buddy-buddy. Then Torres replies that even if he doesn't want to, he first has to thank him, because thanks to Zed, his life was saved. Our boy notices that just like in the game, and since he is a knight, the guy keeps his word of honor. His pride is too high. He'd never hurt someone who saved him. And if there's someone who knows Torres well, it's him. After all, he played 10 years of Torres. But the guy says enough small talk. Let's get to the point. He wants to know what's this about the murder of the city people and prison guards being a setup. Zed says that's fine and starts to explain everything that happened. Sometime later, Torres says that if what Zed said is true, then trying to defend himself really is justifiable. The whole point of this, though, is figuring out whether it's true or not. But Zed replies that if it were a lie, he would have just let Torres die, and that would have been an easier way out for him. Strangely, Torres says that honestly, that argument is solid, bro. I accept it. That's it. The guy gave up on arguing. Then he puts a sack on the table and says that's a gift. Man, it's some kind of powdered minar. Zed, however, replies that if he's trying to apologize, he's going about it the wrong way. What he really wants is help finding Ryu's younger brother who's missing. Torres says that doesn't make sense. That wouldn't benefit him as a mage. But Zed just replies that he doesn't care about that. It's a promise he made to his friend. The next morning, there's the badass again, every day, bright and early, doing a bunch of push-ups, haffelas. Man, I gotta get inspired by this guy. and Ryu's all confused, wanting to know why he asked that favor when he could have gotten something much better for himself. Meanwhile, Tuvo was just off to the side listening to everything and watching our boy working out. Yo, this guy is peculiar. Huh, fellas? I don't know. The only woman in this story was Herna and she already died. They really gotta introduce some new ones, cause this is getting strange. And oddly, he really is staring at our boy's abs, thinking like a mage without mana, and normally mages say physical training is barbaric, but this one works hard. Maybe he can relate to the kid, a mage without mana, like a knight without a sword. What impressed him was that even so, the boy didn't give up and kept trying to improve. It makes you wonder, if he were in a situation that bad, would he be able to maintain his dignity? In that moment, Torres met a mage who was more of a knight than any knight he had ever known, and he swore he would become his friend. Woo! Let's go, fellas. Finally some friendship, cause this was getting weird. Sometime later, he went to get himself a big ol' steak to eat. Obviously, the kind of feast that would power up anybody. And while Torres is being all friendly with our boys, the other knights are just off in the corner watching and not liking it one bit. He tells everyone to sit down, and our boy is impressed, just like he thought. Torres is a man of his word and honor. Ryu, on the other hand, is a bit unsure, asking if he's really sure they can eat that. Our boy says he really doesn't know knights, just eat and say thanks. They start eating, but Zed knows nothing in this world is free. For them to be serving something that expensive, they definitely want something in return. Suddenly, though, one of the knights stands up, saying that unfortunately, this situation makes him uncomfortable, so he's leaving. The other guys say the same, and everyone stands up, saying they're going. In just a second, it's only the three of them left at the table. Torres apologizes, but Zed says it's all good. Besides, it's better not to punish those guys. He wouldn't gain anything from it. Torres says again it's weird that our boy is asking not to punish guys who are always insulting him. But Zed says that's expected. Those guys have seen mages as enemies since they were kids. Obviously, it wouldn't be normal for them to suddenly meet one and just sit down and share a meal. Torres says that maybe it's true. Maybe he was wrong to even invite them to this. But at that moment, Zed says he must have something more important to say, right? Since he called them here for this. Torres explains that they're planning to leave this place soon, but he wanted to delay the departure by one day. That's because he wants to show everyone that Zed is a kind and honorable young man, and one day would be enough. Zed asks if he was okay with that, and he says yes. Sometime later, we're at the southern border near the wall of Itamaya. A creature is sliced in half, and a knight celebrates. Torres praises everyone's work and tells them to keep moving forward. Zed, however, is there in the middle of everything, trying to understand why he's being brought into all this. He knows that this group is extremely advanced and usually deals with dangerous creatures. That's why after every mission, they either celebrate the fact that everyone made it back, or in some cases, they mourn those who didn't. Zed thinks that Torres' plan is to make him participate in this so the group will start to like him. Maybe it's an emotional decision, but it fits a 17-year-old kid. As they continue on, though, they find some marks on the ground. The crater is huge, and Torres asks if anyone knows what caused it. The guy next to him says it's probably a beast that hasn't been cataloged yet. By protocol, they should retreat now and record it in the books, but Torres says that would be overkill. They're not even in Danger Zone 1 yet, so even if it's a new creature, it should be low level. The others say that even if it's low level, it could still be dangerous when it's something unknown. Torres is thinking about going back until Zed says that he knows what the creature is. Clearly, it was a monster called Basilisk. A mid-level creature, but with 25 circle knights and him in the 6th circle, it would be hard. Torres asks if he's not lying, while all the soldiers start saying they can't trust a mage. To which Zed simply replies that they should know Arahan mages have a much broader bestiary record than they do. The guys always think they're being insulted and start complaining about the kid, but Zed replies that they're the ones underestimating him. First off, they shouldn't even have the nerve to speak that rudely to an Arahan hare. Suddenly, Torres interrupts the conversation and tells everyone to be quiet. He goes to apologize to Zed, saying he had hoped things would go better, when suddenly, the Basilisk appears behind everyone. Torres immediately yells for everyone to get into formation, but they already have to dodge the first attack. He asks if Zed is okay, who tells him to pay attention to the fight man. He nearly got chomped by another monster. That's when they realize it's not one Basilisk, but two. And Torres is already activating his aura. And now that I notice, doesn't he kinda look like Vlad from Stellar Swordsman? Like a Vlad from another world, and man, all the knights are there with their aura lit up, charging toward the Basilisk. Strangely, in this world, mages fight up close while the knights are the ones sending out those aura slashes. The problem is, those aura slash explosions are doing nothing to the Basilisk, and even Vlad is confused because the attacks aren't working. Suddenly, the creature lifts up a tail full of spikes and Zed yells for everyone to get down. Nobody obeys, and Torres shouts at them to follow orders. That's when the guys throw themselves flat to the ground. But Zed notices one guy being stubborn, saying he won't take orders from a mage. Artmoy yells again, but too late. The monster fires off a bunch of poisonous spikes. Those who were down didn't get killed, but the fool who stayed standing, obviously, got hit. Was saved by Zed, right? Of course he had to be saved by the mage kid, dumbass. But our boy already warns them that on the next attack, the monster is going to aim at the ground, so that trick won't work twice. Then he tells Taurus that he'll leave him and the knights to deal with the one on the left. In other words, the badass is going to handle the one on the right. Taurus is a bit confused, but Zed just tells him to answer already, yes or no. So the blondie says fine. They'll kill the one on the left, and he'll take care of the one on the right. Our boy smiles and says he's counting on them. With that, the Night Squad jumps away, leaving our boy face to face with the other basilisks. Now that he's alone with the monster, the Challenger talent activates. With 10 more mana, he's able to activate the Lightning talent. He calls out to the monster, telling it to look over here, charges toward the creature, which roars in his direction. But Zed, of course, is smiling. He loves risking his life. They said he's lucky to have found something like that. The monster tries to attack, but he dodges by jumping from one tree trunk to another and comes down from above again. The creature might look tough, but he knows where its weak point is. It's not about piercing. It's about striking it on top of the head. With that, the monster's all twisted and trembling, then collapses to the ground. Man, the beast is already dead. I thought that thing would be more trouble, honestly. On top of that, he gets an ingredient from its mouth, a red thing called Demon's Breath. It's a key ingredient that you can put into holy water to possibly turn it into an elixir. The boy's all in his swag mode, lightning crackling and little energy orbs floating around. And he says that the elixir is a perfect item since it has a small chance of boosting some of your stats. And since he already has all of his stats maxed, well, it's a 100% chance to increase mana. Then he waves goodbye to the monster, saying he's off to help the knights. Torres was defending himself from an attack but was sent flying. Even so, he was still managing to hold out. The problem now is that he's been separated from the knights and doesn't have any defensive support. Right then, he sees a firework shoot into the sky. Man, and it hits the monster square in the head again. Obviously, it was Zed asking if he's okay. Seeing the boy all electrified, Torres wants to know what kind of energy that is. The knights all arrive, shocked, asking what that is. Of course they recognize it instantly, right fellas? It could only be the Tan Killua. Torres asks if he's really using Lightning Key, and Zed says that's obvious, which leaves the guy even more confused since as far as he knows, the boy has no mana. The protagonist explains that he acquired mana a little while ago, which makes the fool even more confused. That's because in this world, you're kind of born with mana already formed, man. A baby might not have all the circles connected, but they already naturally have the talent for it. But if Zed was born without anything, right, that means he should have never been able to get it. It's the same as someone being born with 9 fingers and suddenly growing a 10th one. It really was a good comparison. At the very least, it's peculiar. While Torres is deep in thought, Zed asks if he can keep the item. Torres says yes. He's the one who killed the creature, so he gets to keep it. Our boys all smiles. Getting those 2 items really was a stroke of luck. Sometime later, the knights are all talking about how Zed killed the creatures. First off, it made no sense. A kid with no mana using lightning. Second, he was fighting physically instead of using magic from a distance. That's all anyone was talking about. And a bit later in a bar, the guy that our boy made kiss the asphalt comes to thank him. Zed says it's fine, asks if he's hurt. The guy says thanks to him, he's not. Ryu immediately wants to know what our boy did, suddenly getting treated with respect like that. To which our boy just says, whatever. At least now they're going to help even more in finding his brother. At that moment, Tora calls out to the 2 of them. He already compliments our boy, saying he really managed to change the knights' opinions. That's when he reveals that, unfortunately, he has to return home. He's sure the family head is going to go nuts when he finds out everything that happened there. Zed asks if he's not afraid of getting chewed out for getting close to an Arahan. Tora says he's already bracing for that anyway. He always knew it would happen sooner or later. Besides, he also plans to pass through Frinda to help look for Ryu's brother. Strangely, from that low camera angle on Ryu, the 2 look kinda like villains. But they're talking about how, now that there's a noble hare from this region looking for his brother, the odds of finding him are much higher. Ryu gets all emotional and thanks them both. The next day, they're in Frinda, a region in the south where the trade port is located. Finally, Ryu reveals the name. The person he's looking for is a girl named Lisa, 13 years old. She has long blonde hair that goes down to her waist. He roughly shows what her height is and says they'll be able to tell because she's adorable. Nothing dangerous at all about a girl like that walking around the world alone. Zed says they'll need to check the records of slaves that were sold and those that are still up for sale. Basically, all the houses that deal in that kind of business. The knight just agrees, and then our boy tells Hulk that they'll first talk to the merchant he used to work for. Sometime later, they're there looking at the entrance of a place guarded by some guy. Zed tells Ryu he won't be able to go in, man, and meanwhile, he's already dressed up in a fancy suit. Obviously, he's going in as someone interested in buying a slave. Right away, the guy at the door, trying to act tough, is bowing, saying it's amazing to receive someone as distinguished as him. That's without even knowing who he is, right, man? He asks if the boy is looking for something specific, and Zed says he wants to know if this is Hamill's trading firm. The guy says he must be mistaken. This is a slave market. Suddenly, he stands up and says that apparently the boy isn't a noble, and that it's better for a kid like him to just leave. Zed finds that weird and says he is a noble. The guy replies that every true noble refers to slaves as if they were products. In other words, the fact that Zed asks if it was a trading post, it makes sense. Zed tells him to stop being stupid, but the guy says he must have been sent by DeVio. Once again, our boy curses him out, and the guy tries to throw a punch, and 10 seconds later, there he is, all wrecked, getting slapped in the face with Zed telling him to answer already. Turns out that the original Hamill's trading firm disappeared, and these guys took over, and Zed wants to know why. The guy explains that the previous owner went bankrupt, so they kinda just took over the place. Zed wants to know who this DeVito guy is, and the man says he's the biggest slave trader in the entire southern region. Now Zed's got one more name for the list, and he wants to know where the rest of the people from this place are. When the guy asks if he means the products, implying that slaves are nothing more than items, he gets another slap to the face. Zed tells him to say that again, and bam, another slap and another. Then he tells him it's about time he learns that people aren't products. Even if he's trash, he should at least try to live with a minimum of decency. The guy apologizes, and some time later, he's pulling back the curtains. Behind the bars, there's a bunch of worn-down people, chained up and imprisoned. Zed asks if there's anyone else, and the guy says no. That's everyone. Zed finds it strange. There's no blonde girl, no kids, nothing like what they're looking for. But that's to be expected, right? Children are usually the most expensive slaves out there. Most likely, a girl like the one Ryu described would have already been sold a while ago. He turns to the guy and says that today he's lucky. He's going to get a chance to become a decent person. All he has to do is bring all the money from this place and the prison keys. Next scene, the fool is behind bars, and our boy tells him it's his turn to experience that life. Outside, the former slaves are all thanking him for his kindness. Looks like he took all the money from the slave traders and distributed it among the freed people so they could restart their lives. A golden-hearted boy. He also took the opportunity to sit and talk with some of them to hear their life stories and gather information about this world. A white-haired guy introduces himself as Gordon and says he used to be an assistant to the Cherville family. Zed replies that if he worked for those people and didn't get killed, he's already lucky. To which Gordon says yes, at that time the heavens must have been on his side. When it comes to blacksmithing, the Cherville family is the most powerful. In times of crisis and war, everyone looks for the magical tools and weapons they used to produce. But because of a betrayal against the Empire, all of them were killed. With that, they vanish from history, and nobody even likes to mention their name anymore. Obviously, though, the Empire was stupid. Since they didn't let a single descendant live, the techniques they had were lost forever. And now that the number of magical beasts keeps growing, not having quality weapons is costing them dearly. With his hands all beaten up, Gordon says that all of this is just past glory. Our boy says it really is sad to know that such great techniques have been lost to time. Then Gordon says that, as a thank you, he's going to share some information, but only because Zed saved him. It's a secret that has to be kept. Our boy says it's fine, but even so, the old man glances around and says they'll have to talk somewhere else. Outside, he explains that the true heir of the Cherville family, known as Lacto, is still alive. The truth is that his main assistant died in his place so he could escape. He changed clothes, disfigured his own face, and was never recognized again. If the plan worked 100%, he's probably living somewhere in Myers. That's a great piece of info for Zed. The only problem is, someone being hunted for treason obviously won't be easy to find. Zed thanks him, and Gordon says he only told him because he seems like a good person. All he asked was that nothing bad happened to Mr. Lacto. With that, they go back into the bar to eat. Will, though, is eating but looks kind of sad, and Zed wants to know why. He can't be down just because they didn't find his sister in the first place they checked. There are much bigger slave dealers, DeVio for example. Gordon seems to hear that name and tells him to be careful. That guy is on a totally different level from the place they destroyed. Zed's feeling confident and says he's got a Bahal squad with him, so he's not afraid. But Gordon tells him he has no idea. DeVito has connections across the entire empire. And apparently, one of the rumors is that his biggest client is none other than the Arahan family. Of course, right? At that moment, our boy is using his blue lens, so nobody there knows he's actually an Arahan. He's already imagining that the Black Mirror guys must be buying slaves to train and turn into the shadows of the family. Feeling a little awkward, he says it doesn't make much sense. Why would the Arahans come all the way south to buy slaves? To which the old man says it's because the prices are unbeatable. Plus, if they buy up all the best slaves in the south, they're leaving the powerful southern families without options. Zed stops to think for a second and says, yeah, it really does sound like something the Arahans would do. The real problem now is, what if the Black Mirror folks are protecting DeVio? That means if he attacks them without revealing his identity, it could start a full-blown war between the Bahal and the Arahan. Ryu calls out to our boy, a little hesitant, and Zed notices that the kid's feeling awkward because his request is starting to cause way too much trouble. But Zed tells him not to worry, this isn't just about his sister anymore. It's about doing what's right. To him, it didn't matter. He was going to wipe out every slave dealer sooner or later anyway. Next day, face to face with DeVito's slave market, which looks more like some giant imperial palace/church mansion. Here comes our boy, dressed like a noble, as he makes his entrance. Suddenly, people inside are startled. Zed entered without saying anything, and the beefed-up guy at the front is asking what he thinks he's doing. But our guy just wants to know where DeVito is. One of them says he needs to understand where he's walking into. Another warns that this is one of the few places where even a young noble could lose his life. But there he goes, reaching for his eye, saying that everyone who works for the Arahans really is arrogant. And the moment the guys see the red eye, boom, they're all falling to their knees begging for forgiveness. And then in the background, he also notices a guy slightly bowing. The outfit looked like it belonged to the Black Mirror folks, but probably someone of low rank. That's when, from the second floor, someone says that an interesting visitor has arrived. The mustache guy wants to know what someone so esteemed is doing there. He comes down and says he heard that this boy went to the slave mall and destroyed the place. Right away, Zed realizes that, judging by the guy's confidence, the Arahan name alone isn't going to work on him. This is probably DeVito, who's already grabbing a glass, saying he didn't expect the kid would actually have the guts to come all the way there. But maybe he was just too naive. Zed gets right to the point and says that starting today, the deal between them and the Arahan is over, and he's going to take all the slaves from that place, so it's best DeVito cooperates. But man, DeVito bursts out laughing in his face, apologizing because he couldn't help it. That was just too funny. Zed wants to know if the guy's really that eager to die, to which DeVito replies that he's just curious to know when that's supposed to happen. He says he's tired of the chit-chat and that he's not going to kill the boy since he's a respected guest. However, the lesson he was going to learn today, he carried for the rest of his life. Just like the protagonist thought, he's going to have to settle this with fists. The only problem is he's hoping that hooded guy in the back doesn't have too many circles. He's getting ready to go on the offensive before the other guys move, but then suddenly, someone yells to surround the building. Whoa man, look who's shouting over there. Obviously, it's Torres yelling that they're there to drop a like on this video that helps Mamoru make more juicy content for his viewers, activate the cheeky little bell, and I'm out.